但是声音里冷冷的他正在嘲笑林焉之的宋宋。闭嘴，吵死了！笑僵在脸上，翻了一片死地。视线落到迟彦中身上，然后我看向温和的微笑。为什么朝我做绿灯的手，一边点头拉着同伴走到座，一边乖乖知道了。看向林焉之，偏头眼亮亮的看向迟彦中，小声的说：“我想他大概在到。”在中午算，在大多数人在吃饭睡觉，最轻的吧，在窗边隐蔽的角落。
It is 7 o'clock, so we will begin this meeting of the Employment Committee. Welcome to you. All, I was going to say all, but there aren't all that many of you really. But anyway, in particular to Councillor Rise, who is substituting this evening for Councillor Lisa Finan-Cook, I believe. Okay, welcome. And to those people watching in online. Fine. Apologies for absence. Please, James.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned earlier, Councillor Lisa Finan-Cook sends her apologies and she's substituted by Councillor Morgan Rise this evening.
Thank you. Does anybody have any declarations of interest, which we'll deal with after we've dealt with the minutes, obviously? We're doing the minutes first, sorry, that was my mistake.
Can we just note that Councillor Ying Perrott has joined online but not formally in the room? Yeah?
Great. You've got that? Yes. Good. Fine. Minutes of the previous meeting, are we happy for me to sign those? Good. Okay, the first substantive item then is the Speak Up Policy Annual Report, which I believe is for noting by the committee. And I believe, Lisa, you're going to deal with that. Over to you.
Thank you. So this report goes to Joint Staff and Employment Committee each year. And the purpose of this report is to advise you of the number and topics staff have used their right to speak up as per our Speak Up policy. This was previously known as the whistleblowing policy of the Council. So speaking up is the confidential disclosure by staff of any wrongdoing that they may encounter in the workplace. So this year, the annual report showed a slight decrease in the number of reports received. And in terms of number, there were 7 reported conversations overall, 3 of which further action was taken. And the final point to note on this report is that we have talked as a group around collecting information for future reports and having more robust procedures around how we collect that information. So I'm happy to take any questions on that report.
Josh.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I know obviously it remains completely confidential. With the 3 which obviously went further, was it resolved by the end of it, and all parties kind of happy in that respect?
One, I'm just looking at my notes now. 1 is still ongoing, and 2, 1 was in mediation, and 1 was another conversation only, I believe.
Any other issues? Fine. So we're happy to know that. Good, thank you. So we move to item 5, which is HR policies and governance, and I believe you're dealing with that as well, aren't you? Very good. Please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is a new report and it looks specifically at policies and procedures that we specifically look after in HR. So what we have done is split the policies into the various categories and produced a summary of when they were last reviewed, and then highlighted any policies that are currently being reviewed. So it's a quick snapshot really of all the things that we're responsible for from a policy perspective in HR, and status of last reviewed and anything that's under review at the moment. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Questions, comments? Councillor Rise.
Yeah, I did say I wasn't planning on speaking, but it's just a quick question. With the intended transformation programme that's coming forward, and obviously I'm not asking for specifics on that, I'm just wondering how do these tie into that process, as well as is there going to be almost a need for a more wholesale approach to looking at HR policies and governance as well?
In relation to the transformation project here, there's one specific project policy, that jumps out straight away, and that's the organisational change policy. That one we've put onto our work plan for next year. It doesn't need a whole-scale review, but it does need a little bit of updating and some tweaks.
Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to put on the public record appreciation for the clarity of this document and the way it's set out. I think it's really helpful, and thank Ms Dixon for her work.
Yes, I think the committee is happy to endorse that. It's incredibly complex. It seems to be the night of complexity tonight, It tells you something when we say that this is probably the easiest one. So thank you for that. Yeah. So we are asked to recommend the Employment Committee's advised to resolve that the updates to HR policies and procedures as set out in Annex A of the report be noted. We happy to do that? We are. Good. Thank you. Right. We now move on to item 6, which is the bring your own device policy. You again? Or you?
Me.
Oh, an alternative, right. Sally, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Bring Your Own Device policy, firstly, I just do need to apologise to the committee for the very late entrance of this policy. The reason for that was because this is essentially an ICT policy. This committee, of course, looks after HR and staffing policies, but it was felt that as it was a new policy and it does affect staff and the way they use their devices, that we should bring it here. It has gone to the Joint Staff Consultative Committee. As I say, it's a new policy to the Council, and what it tries to formalise is that at the moment we put apps on people's own mobile phones, so things like Outlook and Teams. It is not the full browser version, it's the sort of light, if you like, version, but it enables people to read their emails on their mobile phone and that sort of thing. We hadn't formalised this until recently. It's part of our cybersecurity sort of suite of improvement to formalise a policy around it, so that it just makes it clear how data is used, what happens if the device is lost, and so on and so forth. One of the things that the staff reps asked us to include is an FAQ section at the end, and you'll see that that has been included. As it is a brand new policy, It is one of those ones that we will review on a more regular basis than other policies. What we'll be doing is reviewing it in a year's time to make sure that it is being correctly implemented. We do have an implementation plan with it, so we are going to communicate it to the staff and give any appropriate training for any members of staff that require it. And yes, I just ask the committee to consider it and ask any questions.
Thank you, Sally. Questions, queries, comments? Josh?
And thank you, obviously, for the comprehensive report. My first question really is, would it be appropriate for this to include members as well as staff? Because I'm conscious, obviously, as I sit here with my iPad today, which I know I've got my emails on, and I know other members also use various other devices, so I wonder whether it would be appropriate for members to be included with that as well, just to kind of have that wraparound on that. I know we get issued obviously a laptop, but conscious with obviously all of these devices being used, it would make sense. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, Councillor Thorne. And the policy does actually apply equally to councillors, and it mentions that in the scope. I expect that the implementation plan will also include councillors, make sure councillors are communicated with around this, because you're absolutely right, we all need to keep our assets safe.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'll come to you in a moment, Morgan. In that regard, it does actually make clear in paragraph 2 that anybody using their own device, whether officer or councillor, has to register that fact with IT. It very boringly, incidentally, goes on to add that they won't look after your machine if you do that, which I think is pretty miserable, really. But anyway, there we are. Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, because when I was reading through it, and it was clear that there's kind of a process for iPads and iPhones and equivalent, but what I didn't really see is the use of personal laptops and computers within the policy as well. So I'm just wondering, because I know that there are colleagues of mine who have their councillor email logged in on their own personal laptop, and I'm just wondering, how does that interact with this policy as well? Because unless I'm completely mistaken, and please do point me to the right bit, I'm just wondering where computers tie into this policy.
Again, it's a really, really good question, and one that I will need to check with the ICT manager. I would say that I think it's around the use of apps specifically on phones. When you use a laptop, you tend to access things through a web-based browser, and I believe, I'm no technician here, but I believe that that's already protected. It's the use of apps that need the extra policy, if that makes sense. But I will check with the ICT manager and confirm that.
Okay, anything else? Good. Okay, so we're asked to resolve that the bring your own device policy, as set out in Annex A to the report, be adopted. Are we happy with that? Great, thank you. That brings us to the work programme, I believe. And Sally, I'm sure you're going to deal with this too.
I am indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yes, the work programme is proposed for, it says 24-25, but yes, so this is the last, sorry, apologies. This is the last few policies that we'll be bringing in this work programme. Sorry, Chair, was there a...
No, there was an issue about...
Oh, sorry, apologies.
No, please, carry on.
So this is the work programme for the final employment committee of this year, so 24-25, going to be held on the 27th of March. You'll see that there is the pay policy statement, which is one of our annual policies that comes and needs to go on the website. That's one of our statutory requirements. There's also the gender pay gap report, which will be for noting and discussion. I believe that we have to report our gender pay gap prior to the employment committee, but I know last year the committee said that they would really welcome discussing it from an equalities point of view. there is the Code of Conduct. Now, that says it's a new policy. In fact, it is a refreshed policy, but it is so extensive that we are treating it as a new policy, which is why it says it's new. There's the policy programme review, which we have developed from the policy work that Ms Dixon's been doing. And then lastly, we're also going to bring the work programme and priorities for 2025-26. Now, back to your question earlier about devolution and its impact on policies, that work programme is being impacted by devolution because, of course, we're anticipating that one of our requirements will be, as we know what our partners are, we begin to want to harmonise policies, which will be a huge project. So I know that will be influenced by that. And we'll be bringing that for your consideration next time.
Okay, anybody got any comments or queries on any of that? Leader, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Kipping, sorry, just help me here. What's the difference between the policy programme review then and the work programme and priorities for 2025-26?
I do apologise. One of the things that we did last year was, I believe we changed the governance of this committee, so not every policy comes. So one of the things that the committee wanted us to do, and I think that is a very good suggestion, is they wanted to know what joint staff was beginning to sign off. And so the policy programme review is the programme of policies that isn't necessarily coming here. So there'll be the policies that we've just made tweaks and amendments to, but so that you've got that oversight that we are doing it and there is a programme and you've got the opportunity to comment on any of them. Yeah, that's what that is. Whereas the work programme is going to be the specific work that we look at here in this committee.
Thank you. So I guess sort of linking back to the overview that Ms Dixon gave us, we could potentially flag which ones there are for joint staff and which ones are for here. It wasn't flagged at the moment, was it? I don't think, from memory. No. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Fine, so that's agreed. We now come to item 7, which is the exclusion of press and public, and it's rather lengthy, but I think I probably should go through the whole thing. The committee is advised to resolve that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the ground that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as set out below. And the relevant paragraphs, it would appear, are item 8, paragraphs 1, information relating to any individual, paragraph 3, information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Item 9, in respect of paragraph 1, information relating to any individual, and 3, again, which is the same as for item 8, so I won't repeat that. And then item 10, once again, item 3, concerned with information relating to the financial business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Are we content to agree the exclusion clause? Thank you. So we will now pause.